Hi everybody, Chris Pies here with another PCA Sim Racing Classroom. We're in Season 13, and we're going up to the Great White North in Canada to run at one of the more famous North American road courses in all of racing, which is Mosport, or Canadian Motorsports Park. Canadian Motorsports Park is one of the shorter racetracks on the calendar by lap time. We should be looking at anything from 1:15-minute lap times to 1:18 depending on conditions and skill level. But it's the fastest racetrack probably on the calendar over average speed. This track is very quick. And despite having one of the slowest corners, I think, in North America, which is Moss Corner, it still holds the title of, I think, fastest track in North America. I may be completely making that up, but I think I overheard that somewhere. But regardless, it is quick. It is built up of very fast sweepers all over the place. Lots of undulation, big hills that go up and down, off camber corners, on camber corners. It is a roller coaster, to say the least. And while the track may not be long and there may not be a whole lot of corners, there's a lot of nuance at this track and a lot of places that you can either pick up time or lose time depending on your perspective. So what we'll do, just like every classroom, we'll go through and do a kind of a detailed track walk in the GT3R, and I'll tell you what I'm looking at in terms of my lap, and hopefully we can delve into the lap a little more detail, kind of see where we can pick up some time and carry that on into our practices and ultimate race over the next couple weeks. So let's go ahead and get this thing loaded up. I ran a little bit earlier today and was finding myself in the, I'd say about I think I did a mid 15, but as the tires start to wear, as the conditions change, anything from 15 to 16s, I think, are probably going to be the pro level. There probably is going to be somebody, probably Canadian, with their hair on fire that may do a 14. And if they do that, I will hate them. But usually 15s in the pro class is probably going to be pretty on average, mid to high 15s for race pace. And then the different classes going from there are probably going to increase. So the thing about Mosport is because it's so high speed, it's also high risk. When we get to turns like turn 2, which is Clayton Corner, it's fast. The car is absolutely on edge. And if you don't have a really, really good line going through there, you run the risk of looping the car and spinning it. And typically when cars spin or get out of control in turn 2, they tend to hit a wall and hit a wall hard and end a race. So we need to just keep that in mind and keep that in perspective. All right, so let's get this show started. Like I said, we're in the GT3R, like always for this season, and we will start our lap. Coming into turn 1 at Mosport, you'll find that it's blind, especially from the cockpit view. You can't see the apex at all. All you've kind of got are some visuals with the signs in the background. You got the flag stand on the outside of turn 1 as reference points, and you've also got the pit wall that can also be used as a reference point. What I like to do is for turn 1, my thought process is lift and go. So you don't really necessarily have to hit the brake if conditions are pretty ideal. You can get away with a lift in 5th gear, let the car turn in, and then once the car is turning and taking a set, go back onto throttle. On our way down the hill in turn 1, what we're looking for is to apex the inside curbing where it ends, so at late apex, and we're looking for the point where we can get on the throttle, hit that apex curbing get on the throttle as early as possible, but still have that late apex to carry us down. As far as turn in, we're kind of looking for this point, which is right at the peak of this hill, so kind of at the apex of this hill at the very top, and then we'll turn in and kind of dive down the hill. So if we go back to the far chase cam, this is kind of what it looks like. So we're going in. Here's our lift. So I've started my turn-in point. I've started my lift at the same time. This is as I lift off the throttle, it's putting the relative weight back on the front tires, which is giving me turn-in grip. I'm fully off the throttle as I go down the hill because I want the car to turn. And then
You're in fifth.
I'm in fifth gear through here.
Okay.
And then I am looking down the hill, way around the corner at the candy stripe curbing, and I want to apex at the end of the candy stripe curbing. You've also throughout Mosport have these sealants in the track. You can see it better here. So there's this patch of concrete that has been added. And the reason it's been added is because that's the line that cars are putting all their weight on, is right here. So what did the track do? I guess it wore out over time. In this particular scan that we've got, which is old, they put sealant there to help reinforce it. So the reason it's like that is because that's where the pros drive and put their cars. So we need to be putting our car in the same spot. So left side tires on the sealant patch. Notice I've picked up the throttle at this point. I'm well before the apex, which again is right here. And you can see the sealant goes and starts to get closer and closer, and apex is at the end of the curbing. That's where we want to be too. Pick up throttle super early, and in this particular lap, I actually missed it a little bit. But we want to apex right around here. If we apex right around here and we're on full throttle and we've got a good angle, we should be able to just hold full throttle all the way on the exit in fifth gear coming out of this corner and not have to adjust. If we do need to adjust, we either apex a little bit early, or we're like in the position I'm at where we missed the apex a little bit, you can get away with just a little tiny lift on the way out and then back on throttle. As you lift off the throttle, the front is going to tuck in. And then as soon as the line is adjusted, you get back on the throttle. If you have to do that, though, it's not necessarily fast, so you're going to lose time relative to if you would have just been able to plan it and stick it all the way through. I sometimes see in a counterpoint coming through this corner is people apexing the wall. So coming down, going over the curbing, and apexing down near the wall. You can do that. It opens up the corner a little bit. The problem is that inside of this curbing, close between the curbing and the wall, it's very bumpy, and the car is going to bounce around when you're trying to get the car to take a set. I don't like it. I've been caught out if I take too much of that corner like that. There's a really bad bump really on the inside, and it can bounce the car up and completely underbalance it under load and result in you in a spin, or at least at the very least a slide. If you keep it nice and tidy and keep it on the right side of or the left side of the curbing, which is the correct side of the curbing, the car is nice and balanced, and you can carry so much speed through there that I do not think you really lose anything by not going all the way down to the wall. If you go all the way down the wall, it's not a 1X. This is all considered track at the end of the day, but I don't do it. So as we come through, apex point right here, throttle is absolutely pinned, and we track all the way out to the curbing. This curbing is okay to get up and on so long as your steering wheel is pretty darn straight. So if you are coming out and you realize that you're going to hit the curbing, get your wheel straight. Don't go over this curbing if you've got still steering angle in your car. If you've got a significant amount of steering angle in the car and you go over the curbing, when your left side tires hit the grass, which is probably what's going to happen if you have that much steering angle, they're going to lose traction, and then you're probably going to end up spinning and hitting the inside wall. That happens a lot here coming out of turn one. So if you're going to go up on the curbing, make sure your steering wheel is straight. If you're going to go well into the curbing and potentially the grass, just lift off the throttle, get your steering straight, make sure you have control of the car, and get control of the car and bring it on nice and safe down here further down the road. Don't try to save it, because that's where cars get destroyed, is on the inside here. So if I back it up and show without me starting and stopping, that's a little slow. Okay, here. So turn in, fifth gear, lift off and breathe off the throttle, and then back on the throttle in fifth gear. Roll that momentum through and carry it all the way out. Some people might ask, what about fourth gear through there? You can do fourth gear, but if you are in fourth gear, it's absolutely wound out. I was finding myself, the rev lights were flashing at me the entire time. And not to mention, we're going downhill. From this point, after our turn-in point, so at this point, we're downhill. So gravity is helping us accelerate down the hill. So we don't really need fourth gear. And I was finding that if I went down to fourth gear, I was overslowing the car because the car was well in the high in the rev range. Fifth gear allowed me to carry more speed, It allowed me to use more of the throttle pedal. I didn't have to be as gingerly on it because I didn't have as much torque in the car and the wheels. So fifth gear allowed me to use much more, and I was able to get on full throttle in fifth gear a lot sooner without having to worry about what's happening on the rear axle. All right, we got a good run through turn 1, and now we come up to everybody's favorite turn 2, the treacherous turn 2. Again, blind entry, can't see anything going into turn 2. Turn 2 is a double apex left-hander. Again, there is another seam like turn 1 throughout towards the exit of turn 2, and we want to use that as kind of a guidance. But in general, we've got 2 apex points. The first apex point is after the crest of the hill. There's a little cutout in the left side with the grass, and I try to apex at the very end of that cutout. The car will then naturally kind of drift out to about mid-track and then start to take a turn in after that mid-track point, and then we are going to apex down at the base of the hill where the compression zone is. If we do it right, we're in fifth gear all the way through this corner. It's very, very fast, and the car is absolutely on edge. We don't want to make any sudden adjustments to any input in the car while going through this corner. For better or worse, whatever we do at the top of the hill on the entry is kind of where we're going to end up. If you make any adjustments to the car, you run the risk of upsetting its delicate balance and resulting in a spin. So if you lift off the gas because you're like, oh no, I'm going too fast, and you just pop off the gas, you're going to unload the rear, you're going to lighten the rear, and the lightened rear is going to have less grip all of a sudden, and it's going to result in a spin. If you make any sudden movements with your steering wheel, at best, they're not going to be responsive because you're already at maximum grip. At worst, if you turn in harder than you were going, the car takes a harder set or tries to take a harder set, and you unbalance the car and you spin. So in general, think of it like bowling. As soon as you let go of the bowling ball to go down the alley, it is what it is. You can't really adjust it after you've done it. If you're going on 100% 10/10ths in this car, or any car, frankly, for that matter, around turn 2, it's like a bowling ball. You've already released the bowling ball. You've already turned in. That's what you're going to do. That's your line, for better or worse. And you just have to ride it out on the way down. So coming through, my visual is obviously the flag stand that's up here on the right. That's where I want to kind of point my car as I crest the hill. I am going to get on the brakes just before the crest of the hill. So I'm right here, just before the crest of the hill. I'm starting to get on the brakes, and as I'm getting on the brakes, I'm tucking the car in. I am not on the brakes hard, maybe about a 50% or 4 or 5 pedal, and it's just to kind of help get the nose loaded and get some grip on those front tires so the car will actually turn as it's cresting this hill. Because remember, as we crest a hill, we're losing grip in the entire grip of the car because the car is actually getting light as we crest the hill. So we're losing grip. So we want to take what little grip we have and put it on the front tires so they still turn and they don't just understeer out of the way. So as we crest the hill, we have a little bit of turning and we're starting our turn in. And then as we go over the hill as we're cresting the hill, we're going to start getting off the brakes because there's very little grip in the car at this point. So asking the car to turn and brake is not good. So we're getting off the brakes as we give a little bit more turn in. And then as we've gone over the crest of the hill and the car again is starting to take a little bit more of a set, and the grip is coming back, we're going to be getting off of the brakes and then transferring back on the gas to settle the rear end of the car. The goal is to get that big fat right rear Michelin planted into the ground and just take a set all the way through this corner. So that's what we're going to start to transition to, is slowly transition to throttle at this point. Remember how I said the double apex point, the first one was the cutout in the grass. Here's that cutout over here on the left. So what we want to do is we want to do a late apex on this cutout of the grass. As you can see here, I'm as late as possible. I'm actually going to just clip the edge of the grass on the exit, or here. This is apex 1. Notice my throttle. I'm almost full throttle already through the first apex. On my way through, the car is going to, as we go down this hill, it's on camber, and we're going to go into a compression. So as we go down the hill, we're going to get more and more grip. The grip is just going to keep coming back to the car. So throughout turn 2, the grip is growing, which means that as we go through it, we're going to have the ability to turn harder or go faster and maintain the same angle or the same trajectory we were on. I'm looking way down track for my second apex point because that's where I want to be. I'm full throttle at this point, and I'm committed. I am going to stay full throttle. If I have to make an adjustment, it is minute. Like going from 10/10 throttle to maybe 8/10 throttle, but no more than that. At this point, I'm in the compression zone, so this is where I'm going to have absolutely maximum grip. We also have a nice, here's that seam I was telling you about that we want to kind of use as a visual aid to say this is the line we should be on to make the corner. You can be below it like I am on this case. What you don't want to do is you don't want to be outside on the right side of this. If you're outside on the right side of this, two things are going on. You're either going to apex super late, which means you could have gone faster by getting on throttle sooner and taking a shallower line, or you're on your way out of the corner and you're understeering through it and you're going to end up in the grass. So try to keep the car at or below the seam. And then there's my second apex point. The second cut out of here where it meets the grass, that's where I want my second apex point to be. If we do it right, the car, when it comes out of the corner, will put itself right on the edge of the curbing. I didn't drive it here. The car ended up there because that's the only place it could have gone. So if we back it up and show again on entry a little bit, touch a brake, off the brake as I go over the crest of the hill, apex 1, boom, we should be full throttle at this point, riding down the hill, compression, apex 2, car ends up all the way to the outside. And it's a constant steering angle. I'm not doing this with the steering wheel, or I'm not fighting it. It's kind of a turn in, set, and let it ride all the way through. And that angle that we take hits both apexes. All right, any questions about turn 2? That's probably the most difficult corner on the track to get consistently right with the speed that you need to take. Nope. Okay. Also, for those keeping score at home, looks like my min speed on this lap was 117? Yeah, 117. So we're hauling the mail through here. This is not a slow corner, to say the least. I'm just going to check chat, see if anybody's saying anything. Nope. Okay, cool. All right, so we made it through turn 2, going up to turn 3, which couldn't be any more different than turn 2. So we're going, not only are we going to the right instead of to the left, the dynamics of the corner are completely different. Where turn 2 was on camber, downhill into a compression, turn 3 is off camber, uphill over a crest. So it's like a complete opposite. What we need to do with turn 3 is we need to be patient. Patient. It's very easy to get on throttle too soon. And as soon as we get on throttle, the front end of the car is going to start to wash out because it's off camber and we're going over a crest. So we're going to get understeer as soon as we get on throttle. We need to delay that understeer as long as possible to when we get onto it, even though it's going to understeer, we're on plane to make the corner and stick it. If we get on it too early, the front end will wash out. We'll start heading towards the edge of the track and we'll have to lift out of the throttle to get it to tuck back in to get back on throttle, which is slow. So late apex. What we're going to try to do is get the car as far over to the left as possible for the entry. I like to use this signboard out of the peripheral in the cockpit as my braking zone. Notice that there's no other braking zones anywhere around here. There's no signs, there's no nothing. So it can be a little difficult if you're not familiar with Mosport on where exactly to brake. We want to brake. We want to find a place that's consistent, and it's more of a sight picture than anything else. But if you really need like something close to you so you can be consistent, look for this out of the corner of your eye. Don't look at it, but look out of the corner of your eye for this sign. And as it goes away from your view, that's a pretty good indicator of braking in a straight line up this hill. We're braking straight uphill, so we want to be parallel to the track, and we want to use a pretty significant brake pedal because we're going pretty quick here. So we need to scrub speed, but also keep the balance in the car. Our eyes and our vision should be up. We should be looking around the corner at the candy stripe curbing. We want to apex at the end of the candy stripe curbing. The seam, like turn 1 and turn 2, is also here. We want to follow the seam. The seam will tell us where the line is. So as we turn in, we're looking for the end of the curbing. And as we're coming up over the crest of this hill, the car is going to get a little bit lighter and lose grip. So the front end's going to start to try to wash out. But if we get a good angle coming through here and we delay our throttle application to where the car is kind of taking this super late apex, when we get on throttle, we're going to end up apexing at the end of the apex curbing. Right here, literally at the very end of the apex curbing. Again, the seam is an awesome, awesome guide to kind of show your trajectory through the corner. If you're finding yourself with all four wheels in the seam, you're too far left. We want to put our loaded tires on the seam, and that's it. So try to keep it on as close to the inside of the seam as possible. We're full throttle in third gear at this point, so we're powering out of it. The front of the car is understeering. Don't fight it. Don't keep your steering angle even though the front end of the car is turning. That's how you scrub your tires and cause premature tire wear. Let the car do what it wants to do. So start unwinding the wheel and allowing the car to track out where it wants to go. It's going to go there regardless. Even if you have a ton of steering in it, the car's still going to end up out there. Don't fight it. Open your hands. Use the track and allow the car to accelerate to the maximum of its ability. If you do it right, you'll end up all the way on the left side of the curbing, headed down into turn 4. I'm going to show from the cockpit what this looks like because, again, like most of the corners here, it's blind. So we have this sight picture, as I was saying. So here's the board, right? As we cross this board, and I've got triples, so I can see the board out of my peripheral, out of the side window as well as it crosses, but this is before it crosses my complete plane. I've lost it in the A-pillar, and so when I lose it in the A-pillar, that's kind of my signal to myself. That's when I want to brake. But I'm not looking out there. I'm looking down here as far as I can possibly see. I can see the very first edge of the curbing. I know what this looks like to me because I've driven enough here. This to me is time to brake. So I'm braking uphill, and I know I can brake at this point. My vision at this point, I'm looking around the corner. I'm looking for these huts that are down here at the end, this garage. I want to see that because I know I don't want to get on throttle before these huts. Waiting. I'll start to pick up throttle once the nose crosses these garages. So I've started picking up a little bit of throttle, but not very much. I've crossed the front of the garages. I've picked up more throttle. And now I'm pretty much full throttle because I know I'm cresting the top of the hill after these garages. My apex point will be right here. So I've crossed, if you want to use this, you've got the garages. You've got a telephone pole with a transformer on it. You've got a second telephone pole here. And then you've got a third telephone pole here. Apexing between these two telephone poles at full throttle is a really good spot to be in to let your car run out. All right, back to chase. All right, so now we're coming up to what I call Continental because of the bridge. This fast left-handed that's very, very, it looks similar to turn 2 here. It has a lot of the same features as turn 2, with the exception of you can take this flat in this car. You can keep the throttle absolutely pinned. Now, if it's a really hot weather situation, which I don't expect it to be, then you may need to do a little bit of a chicken lift on the way in. But if it's nice and cool and sticky, like this session was, easy flat all the way through. But in order to go flat, you have to have a really good angle. And again, going into the entry under the Continental Bridge is completely blind. You're falling off the edge of the world, frankly. Looks like you're going into the woods. So the track will be there. Just trust it. We want to do is we want to enter from the right side of the track to kind of open up the corner as best as possible. And then what we're looking for is we're looking for this little concrete bit that comes out from the left of the track where a curbing would be. And we're going to try to drive around that. So apex behind that. So we turn in with it flat. The car is going to understeer, and you just have to realize it's going to understeer. So we're trying to drive around that curbing, meaning we're trying to go around it and apex later. As we go under the bridge, then we can finally see the track and where we need to be. We've got some dark patches down at the end, and we've got a second curbing. We want to apex around this first curbing, kind of drive our right side tires, or basically our car, over this dark patch, but apex down here. So where turn 2 was a double apex, this is like a single apex, but a super late apex way down the hill. So as you can see here, I'm coming up to the apex. I drive right over the dark patch, and I try to end up with the car parallel to the track on the left side to open up into moss. Again, it should be absolutely flat. I'm going to go to the cockpit because there's so much undulation you can't see anything. So as you can see right here, where in the world am I going? What I'm looking for is the little bump here that kind of signifies that this is where that first curbing is. And I'm going to try to drive down to it. You'll never get down to it because of the understeer. The car is just going to plow out. But if you keep your foot in it and keep your steering angle, as the grip comes back, and the grip is coming back because you've crested the hill. So you crest the hill, very little grip. After you've crested the hill and you've landed on the backside, the grip comes back. And then as you're going down the hill, you're getting more and more compression as the grade of the hill decreases, and you're getting more grip on the right side. And to end up ultimately on the left side of the track here. There may be a little bit of oversteer at this point right here. Just be ready. You can see the lights flash just briefly, and that's because the rear end of the car is getting a little light coming through there under full throttle. I mean, I am going almost 150 miles an hour coming down that hill. We're screaming through there. But if we do it right, we end up on the left side of the track, and as soon as we get parallel to the track and get our steering straight, boom on the brakes. Boom on the brakes as soon as we do it, and it is a panic stop. 10 pedal, let ABS figure it out. We need to get this car slowed down from 150 miles an hour. The thing that is helping us is that after our initial pedal, which is going downhill, we compress and we go uphill. And that hill is going to do wonders for our stopping capability. So it always feels like you're going way too fast into this corner when you first hit the pedal, but then the car stops very quickly because we're going into a hill. As we enter moss, what we want to do is we want to do two things. It's going to be a double apex, where the first apex is the first corner is just setting up the final corner. We want to make sure that I always feel like I am taking this corner. I feel like I'm taking the car straight and then trying to just turn it 90 degrees and then release the brake and let the car roll forward. So it's like turning and then super late apex on this first corner, get the car pointed like almost 90 degrees from where I am now, release the pedal, let the car kind of roll, and then roll that around moss. So what does it look like? Hard pedal. I'm in cockpit because you're not going to see anything from Chase because of the hill. I turn in. I'm letting this hill that I've got all this grip in. So not only am I going uphill, but I'm compressing into it. So it's going to give me a tremendous amount of grip to get the car turned. I'm going to get off, basically completely off the brakes as I turn into here. Because remember, a car doesn't like to do two things at once. So hard on the brakes, turn in. As I turn in, off the brakes to allow the car to turn. And then at this point, what I'm trying to do is my eyes are around the corner. I'm looking for the second apex as best as possible. Do not look out here in front of you. If you look out here in front of you, you're going to go there and you're going to drive off the track. The big thing about moss is that while you have all this grip in the beginning in the first corner on the first right-hander, it all disappears as you crest this hill. Because look, there is a crest right here. So if we think, oh, we have a ton of grip, I just had a ton of grip through there, I can keep turning this car, it's going to be great. You're going to in for a rude awakening because as you crest the midpoint between these two corners, it's all going to vanish and you'll just run wide into the dirt. So what we try to do is we try to get the car pointed. I always feel like the car is about mid-track. I never feel like the car is going all the way to track left to set up for the final corner. It'll end up there or pretty close to there on its own, but I always feel like I'm trying to keep the car no further than mid-track. I'm off my brakes. If I need to get a little bit more brake, I will grab a little bit more as I'm going over the hill. And then a little tiny bit of brake all the way through and over the crest to try to keep some weight on the front wheels so they actually will turn. And then once I realize, okay, it looks like I'm in a pretty good spot turning in to get to that down to the second curb. And you guys can't see it, unfortunately, because I got triples. I can see the apex here. Let me bring it up a little bit more. Right there. Okay, so I'm looking out here trying to see this apex point all the way through the corner. So my vision all the way through this corner is looking for this apex point. So I'll start to release the brake, start adding throttle when I know the car has gotten a set and looks like it's going to make a corner down there. We've crested the hill. We're going downhill. It's on camber. We can see a ton of the track, but we are going downhill. So the tendency for the car to understeer is still there if we get on throttle too early. We need to be patient, wait. And I'm not picking up throttle until about here. So I'm almost at apex and then I'm picking up throttle. If we do it right.
Second gear.
This is
second gear or first gear?
Second gear. First gear is too much, in my opinion. I think second gear is fine. We get down to the apex. Don't hit the apex curbing. It's pretty violent. It can upset the car. I mean, just look at this thing. It's huge. So get as close to it without getting up on it as you can. And when we get down, all the way down to it, we're going to get a little bit more grip right at the apex point so we can pick up throttle earlier than we think. And then open our hands as we're coming out because the car is going to want to oversteer with the power we're giving it and the tight angle of the turn. So let me go to far chase to kind of see what we can see. I'm not too confident we're going to see much, but I'll try. We can see a little bit. Okay, so coming down the hill, we're braking, turning in off the brakes. And again, it always feels like I'm braking, turning in, and trying to turn that car 90 degrees. It's not actually happened, but it always feels like it. Trying to get as late at apex as we can and trying to get the car turned to the left and pointed to the left as best we can through the first corner. We're going to get off the brakes because we're going and cresting a hill, so we're losing all of our grip. If we kept a lot of brake in the car at this point, it would just understeer into oblivion. It wouldn't turn. It would just go straight. So that's why we get off the brakes, is to allow the car, what little grip is in the car, to actually turn the car, not slow the car down. If we need to grab a little bit more brake, we'll grab it here after we crest the hill. Our eyes are up and we're looking for that last apex point. And then we take a wide angle in. You can see how much camber is here. We want to use all of this camber. It's most severe at the apex point of the curbing. That's where we want to be. So let's see how close I get. Pretty darn close. I could have been another inch closer, but pretty darn good. I'll give myself a B plus. Going through there to get a good run to come out, because this is the most important corner on the entire track because it leads to the longest straightaway. Nail Moss, you'll get a good run on your opponents and be able to pass people in one of the few passing places at this track. I actually never noticed that there was actually a seam here too, because I'm not looking for a seam. I'm just in survival mode, just trying to look for the apex and drive the course. But there is a seam here. So if you look at your replays later to see your line should be exactly like the other corners with a seam. You should be following that with your left side tires or your loaded tires all the way through the corner. So there's another quick check. Nice thing about Mosport is these seams at the corners. You can see if you're on line or not by seeing where your left side tire or your loaded tires are if they're in the seam. So yeah. All right. Any question? Turn 4 through 5, 6 through turn 6. Nope. Okay, cool. Continuing on. Oh, let me just check to make sure there's nothing from Mr. McKinney. Any guidance on how to best deal with someone diving on the inside of moss? We are going to get to that in a second. Let's finish with the track walk, and then I will talk about defending against divers into moss, which is a very, very common thing to do. Okay, so let's say we got a really good run through moss. We're going to use all of this, not all of it, but as much curbing as we need without going into the grass. We're going to keep the car tight on the exit because we want to travel the furthest or the shortest distance. And then as we come up the hill, even though this is a straightaway, we want to keep it as straight as possible without having to do a turn. So there's a lot of little turns all the way down the straightaway. We want to travel the distance, the shortest amount of distance. That's the quickest way. We don't want to just kind of mindlessly be cruising down the highway here. make it as straight as possible, and make it as short as possible. Ultimately, when we get down here, we want to end up all the way on the left side of the track, or mostly to the left side of the track, to go into turn 7, 8, and 9 through Moss. I think it's 7, 8, and 9. The final corners of the final complex. Like all corners here, it precedes, or a hill precedes the corner itself. So if we go into cockpit, you can kind of see as we're coming up to it. Oh my God, where does the track go? I have no idea. The nice thing about this corner is you will crest this hill and you will see the track before you need to brake. So you have plenty of time to get your bearings on as soon as you crest this hill. So that's not too big a deal. In terms of braking points, I've seen people use these telephone poles as good braking points coming over the hill. So you come over the hill and you see the track. There's the last telephone pole, and then you got a second one and a third one. Where in here you want to brake, that's totally up to you. I personally don't use the telephone poles. I use sight, and I use the sight picture of what it looks like, and that dictates where I want to brake. So I actually don't know where I'm braking. Oh wow, I'm braking way down there. Okay, so I'm braking somewhere past the second pole here from the end. There's a million lines through this first right-hander here. You can take it shallow and keep it really tight and make it work. You can take a super wide line on entry and a late apex. You can go middle of the road. You can brake early and then get off the brakes and roll speed through it. You can go super deep and super aggressive and slow the car down. There's a lot of lines here. But in general, the goal is to try to end up on the right side of the track coming out of the second apex here. So what does that mean? Well, I'm coming in here. I'm in 6th gear. I'm braking, downshifting 5th, and then downshifting to 4th. And the goal is, here's the apex point through here, this curbing, and it's a long curb. So we want to kind of treat it almost like a same concept as a carousel. So we're going to get down to the curb and kind of ride it. We can get up on it if we really want to. But the goal is not to travel further than halfway out. Don't travel past mid-track here. So keep the car to the right because we need to get the car to turn left. And then on the left-hander, we want to keep the car all the way left because ultimately the turn out of all of these that matters the most is the right-hander leading onto the pitch straight. So we're sacrificing this corner to end up on the right side of the track to set up for this left-hander, which we are sacrificing for the final corner. So we're going to keep it left. Don't go past mid-track because we need to get the car all the way to the left side to set up for the final corner, which we brake here, turn in, get on throttle early, and roll out. So this is the corner that matters right here. Everything before that is just preceding and setting up this. So do whatever you need to do in those previous corners to end up here. If you go too wide out of this right-hander, if you end up all the way over here to the left, you're going to have to be really slow coming around this left-hander to set up for the final corner, which means your speed through here is going to suffer. If you go too wide through here because you were too wide in the previous corner, you'll end up somewhere out here. You'll never be able to get to the left side of the track to take the right corner. And so you'll be slow through that corner. So again, the goal for all of these corners is to end up right here. And look, there's a seam. We're going to follow the seam around. Same thing with the previous corner. Oh, look, there's a seam. We're following the seam around. This only applies if you're not pitting in. This is just if you're doing laps. If you're pitting in, guess what? Pit in's over here on the right. You can bomb through this corner, this left-hander, and end up all the way on track right, and you're perfect for pit in. So practice your pit ins here. They mean a lot because you can... you have a different line coming through this corner, or this second to last corner, for pit in, because you can treat it like a normal corner because you're going to end up in a perfect spot for pit in. So again, this whole complex, we want to brake at a spot where we can take this first corner. We can treat it like a double apex. We can take a nice wide arc. it's whatever you're most comfortable with. There's so many different lines through here, but the goal is to end up on this curbing, the second curbing, and don't go past mid-track. Oh, that's cool. Fire. Don't go past mid-track here to set up for the penultimate quarter. Turn in, keep it nice and tight. Third gear, so I downshift to third gear here. Get the car all the way over to the left, brake. Keep it in third gear. I was trying third and second on these practice runs. Third, I was able to carry more speed and get on throttle sooner. You can actually see I am playing with my throttle, but I'm full throttle right here just before the apex point. Try to stay off the curb. It's pretty large. If you get up on it, it's going to bounce you out and unsettle the car. There's nothing to be gained by getting up on the curb. Keep it nice and tidy. And use the run out over here on the left. Any questions with the line, the track walk, anything like that?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
If that's all right. So going into turn 1, obviously you're in 5th. What is the best spot to kind of get that downshift when you're off the acceleration?
Let's see. So if I go into cockpit, so I'm in 4th, I'm grabbing 5th here, and then turning in. So I lift right there. I'm grabbing 5th and then kind of just immediately lifting, and then just rolling that speed through here, and then get back on it. So I'm not downshifting at all. I'm just grabbing the 5th. On this one, I ran a little wide. So I may not understand your question entirely because I'm not downshifting through there. I'm upshifting.
Oh, no, you're completely fine. I had seen a video a while back about going into 4th, but that actually makes a little bit more sense as far as grip.
Yeah, I'm right. Boom, 5th, and then to turn in. And I like 5th because it forces me to roll speed. If I go down to 4th again, I think I did it. Oh, no, it would have been one of these early laps that I didn't record. If I go down to 4th, I end up, my min speed tends to be too low through here. I can carry more speed in 5th.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Chris, could you do a lap with the camera directly overhead?
Yes. Like this? Or do you want it higher?
No, more like a chopper view.
Oh, a chopper view.
Directly
Yeah, sure.
overhead.
That's it, like that? Is that better?
Yeah, because I think it'll help with the lines. Not like way up.
Yeah, let's go blimp. Okay, so let's see if I can get even further. Ooh, zoom. There we go. Okay, so turn 1. Nice wide line in. Here's the apex point at the end of the candy stripe curbing. Boom. And then we'll end up all the way out. We come into turn 2. Nice wide entry. We're going to apex right here, which is where the you may not be able to see it because of resolution, but here is the cutout here, and then we'll do the final apex over here at the second cutout. So it's going to be a double apex. So if we turn in, there's apex 1. Oh, I'm not on the right lap. That doesn't help. Let's do this. That should be it. Okay. And my blimp moved. Okay, so anyway. Late apex. I'm going to zoom in just a touch. So wide line entry. Apex 1 right here. Car is going to go about halfway out. Apex 2 right at the point of the grass. Car will end up all the way out to the outside. Coming up turn 3, there's the board brake. Super late apex. All the way to where the curbing finally ends, which is all the way here. Then the car will drift out. Coming up to Continental. Remember, it's flat. We're trying to get down to this first curbing, but we never will because the car is going to understeer, but then it will grip up on the exit of the first kind of left-hander. It'll grip up here and then dive in nice and tight and keep it all the way on the left. So completely flat, displaced first apex, grips up. We go over the spots there. Coming up into Moss, remember we're going to do hard brake pedal on the way up. We're going to try to get the car turned as much as possible. It always feels like we're trying to keep it no more than mid-track here, but because of understeer, it always ends up going wide. But ultimately, we do end up all the way on the left side. Lift, get off the brakes, roll the speed to do a late apex or a traditional apex on Moss itself and get a good run coming out. We are now going down the back straight with no way to see. We'll see if we can get super wide here with the chopper. So coming up into the final couple corners, we're going to crest the hill right here. Brake, turn in. Whether you get down to this apex and double apex or you displace it, totally up to you. But the goal of the corner is to end up right here on early on this curbing and kind of ride the curbing around like a carousel. Brake here, we were about mid-track or a little bit right of mid-track when we brake for this final corner. We're not going to go past mid-track on the exit because we need to get the car all the way over to the left. So turn in, late apex, keep the car left, keep the car left, keep the car left. Brake, still in third gear. A little bit mid-apex here, early throttle to get a good run coming out. So I hope that looks a little better. I'm also going to show from cockpit what it looks like. And I'm going to show a different lap too. So this wasn't my actual fastest lap. And I wanted to make a point here. These first laps that I did were with my Portimao set. I figured Portimao is probably a pretty close track for this track because it's got Moss, which is like those tight corners at Portimao, and it's got turn 2 and all these big sweepers like the final corner at Portimao, and then those other big sweepers at Portimao. So I said, like, this is actually a pretty good indication of Portimao. It's like just really small compared to it. So I just ran my Portimao set, and it felt pretty good, and I might need to make a change here or there, but overall it felt pretty good. And then I was curious. I said, what if I go grab the fixed set for PCA right off the website? So I grabbed it. I guess it's high downforce. I ran 0.2 faster on my second, or actually my first flying lap, effectively. This was my out lap, and this is my first flying lap. I went 0.2 faster on the fixed setup. And then look at all my subsequent laps. 15.7, 15.7, 15.7. It wasn't a fluke that I just happened to mash out a fast lap. They were all like that. So it goes to show that fixed setup doesn't mean bad. Fixed setup just means fixed. And so I think the fixed setup that they've got for this track is really good. So if you're looking for a setup, try the fixed setup, see what you think. I actually think I'm going to run fixed and then maybe make an adjustment here or there just to help it in some places I think it needs some help in to go even faster. But right out of the box, I went faster at the fixed setup than my own setup. So keep that in mind. But we're just going to show the fixed setup. So it's a different lap. It is actually faster than the lap I just did the track walk with, but I think it's a little messier, but I don't know. Okay, so again, going into turn 1, crest of the hill, going to grab 5th gear. We're going to let off of it. I usually go full speed on these, don't I? So I'm going to just go full speed and talk quickly. Crest the hill, 5th gear. Turn in. Be patient. Back on full throttle. Let the car track all the way out. Looking for that flag stand entering turn 2. Brake. Off the brakes. Roll the speed. First apex. Second apex. Let the car run all the way out. Brake after the sign. Uphill. 3rd gear. Patience. After the garages. Boom. Back on throttle. Let the car run all the way out. Move the car over to the right. Displace that first apex point coming down the hill. Get the second one. Keep the car left, hard on the brakes. Get that car rotated. Patience, patience, patience. Now on full throttle, going through. Catch my breath. It's been a busy lap so far. We got a nice little reprieve going down the back straight here. Go all the way, row through all the gears all the way up into 6th. We're going to crest the hill. Keeping our eyes up, look for the apex. Brake late. Boom. Get down to the last curbing, keep the car to the right, brake. Down to third gear, keep the car all the way to the left, brake. Off the brakes, on the throttle, early, let the car run out, use all the curbing, and that's a lap. And that was not the lap that I was going to show you. What the world? Okay, here's the fixed setup lap. So that was the one that I did the lineup. Let's see it again. It's so quick. Come up, off the throttle, let the car tuck in, back on throttle. Brake, off the brakes, roll the speed through, back on throttle. Hit the double apex, let the car run out. Brake after the sign, look for the garage, there's the garage. Apex after the garage. I was in fourth gear there. I found fourth gear was better. So third, fourth, depends on your speed. Displace the first apex, get it all the way to the left, brake hard, get the car rotated. Patience, let the car rotate, back on throttle, second gear. Got a little bit of oversteer there, so I could have gone faster. A little bit of slide cost me a couple tenths probably. Going down the back straight, catching our breath. We're going to crest this hill. We're going to look for that second curbing. Down around the corner, there's the second curbing. Get down to it. Fourth gear, fighting it. The car's fighting me. So I ended up a little further left, so I had to slow it down a little bit, but was able to save it. Third gear, open my hands, and run through. You can see on that second lap, the one that I did, the 15.6, I was chasing it a little bit. I think it was because I realized I had a pretty good lap going, so I was driving a little harder, and in some cases overdriving. But the fixed setup was allowing me to push harder because there was some more grip in there that my setup didn't have. If I did that in my setup, I was probably going to spin. So safety in a setup sometimes allows you to push harder because you're more confident. You feel like you can lean on the setup more. And the fixed setup definitely has that in it. So give it a shot if you haven't. All right. Mr. McKinney had a question from Twitch with regards to specifically going into turn 6. How do you avoid getting dive bombed? So we're hustling it. Oh my God, I'm so fast. Going into turn 6. How do you avoid a dive bomb? What he means by this is coming into this corner, it's very easy coming through here. If somebody's right on your tail and they want to make a pass, to instead of following you here, just letting the car run wide and ending up on your inside and trying to create a situation where they take away your braking, your turn-in point. So they're on your inside, they're alongside you, and you're in a braking duel. But if you're the car on the left, you're never going to win this braking duel up the hill because you can't drive around the outside entering Moss. It's just not fast. So how do you prevent that, I think is the question. Well, if you have somebody right on your butt and you realize that they've been racy and they look like they're going to want to try to take you on the inside here, just open your hands and let the car drift out to about mid-track. And then if you do that, you'll end up on the way exit, you'll end up over here. So you may have to brake a little bit earlier because you're taking a tighter turn. But what you're doing is you're taking away their ability to get to the inside and push you out wide. The only path they've got is either follow you through or take the normal fast line. But that puts them out here on the outside, and they're not going to be able to go around the outside of Moss, so they shouldn't be able to. So you could just open your hands, end up here about mid-track or maybe just right of mid-track and brake hard, and you're going to end up being slow right here. But who cares? I mean, this is a slow corner anyway. It's a throwaway. That's not the corner that matters. It's Moss that actually matters. So you can protect that way. Your other option is
Riley?
As you go down the hill and somebody pops out to try to make a pass, just brake early. Just get out of the throttle sooner. Let them go by and clear you, and then just tuck in behind them. If they haven't practiced it and they try to brake too late, they'll outbrake themselves. And I've seen it happen so many times through here. They outbrake themselves and they end up going wide into the grass. And if they go into the grass, you'll just pass them like, oh, they're not even on track. They've basically wrecked. So that's the other option, is let them make the mistake. If they don't make the mistake, you just tuck in behind them. They got through your rear bumper somehow, help them, let them drag you around and look for another opportunity to pass them somewhere else, or maybe undercut them on the pit stop because you're going to save some fuel. That's what I would recommend through there. In terms of just general passing at Mosport, the best place to pass in all of Mosport is at the end of the straightaway here. So coming into this corner right here is a fantastic place to pass. And the biggest reason is there's so many lines. Not only did you draft on your opponent all the way to this point, so you probably are going faster, but when they go out here to make the traditional line to turn into here, you can easily take the inside line and keep your momentum up. If they cover the inside line, you can take the outside line and carry more momentum around the outside. If you're able to stay on the outside through this first corner and through the second corner, so you're too wide, and there's a car out here that was able to, and it's very possible to do this, carry the speed and maintain on your outside, guess what? The car on the right is dead to rights coming through this left-hander. The inside car has all the advantage and usually will clear by that point. So keep that in mind. But that's the best place to pass, is this spot right here. The worst place to pass, I would say, would be turn 2. Don't do it. If we come up through here, turn 1 is not a good place to pass because you're really not even braking, and it's hard to get alongside somebody unless they got a terrible run. So turn 1 is really not that much of a passing zone. Turn 2, not a very good passing zone at all because everybody's gone so fast up to here. If it's difficult to get alongside somebody to put yourself and establish control of the corner if you're the passing car, because we're all in the same car. It's just very difficult to get alongside them. If you can get alongside someone going into turn 2, great. The passing, whoever's on the inside has all the advantage that going through turn 2. And if you're the outside car, really think about your life choices on whether or not you want to go too wide through turn 2. But it's so difficult to get alongside a car and try to outbrake them going into turn 2. Usually what ends up happening is the inside car hasn't practiced it, turns wide, doors the outside car, and pushes the outside car into the weeds and ultimately into the wall. So be careful with that. Turn 3 can be used as a passing zone because you have a pretty... Oh, I didn't actually brake here. But coming into turn 3, the normal line is wide in to carry the momentum around. You can dive it down the inside and outbrake your opponent and then be slow in front of them and clear them and establish the corner. It's very hard for someone to drive around the outside because you're off camber, marbles have formed. It's almost impossible for somebody to go too wide around the outside. The outside car has no advantage there. So 3 is probably another good spot that you could pass. So I'd say the top two passing opportunities is right before the last complex of corners, down after the straightaway. Turn 3 is probably the second best spot. And then turn 6, like we just talked about before, if somebody is not protecting against the dive and you are doing the dive, you can make it work. Just practice it before you try it. So yeah. All right. That's Mosport. Any questions? Comments, concerns? Cool. Hearing none. Well, you guys have fun. I know I think there is a Prelude or a EDE or something. It changes names all the time. Going on right now. Go out there, practice it. Enjoy Mosport. It's one of the best tracks out there, frankly. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's one of the iconic tracks that it makes sim racing so cool because we're able to drive it. If you didn't do sim racing, you probably wouldn't ever experience Mosport unless you're one of those crazy Canadians that lives up around the Toronto area and you can go run Mosport on a regular basis. I think it's in the Toronto area. But yeah, have fun. If you have any questions after this, feel free to message me on Discord. I'm happy to try to set you straight or answer any concerns you've got around the track or the car or whatever. But with that, I'll go ahead and say goodbye. Thanks for watching. Those of you in TV land, a couple weeks we will be tackling our next classroom. So until then, good luck, go fast, don't die. Talk to you soon.